Up with it. Middleton to the front court. Lobbed on the Kupo with a dunk. Timeout Warriors. And that could be that. Bucks lead by 10, 120 to 110 with a minute 41 to go in the game.
It's time for Warriors Wrap-Up. We'll bring you into the locker room and hear from Coach Kerr and the players. Highlights from the game. Warriors Wrap-Up starts now.
Yes, it does. Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you after the Warriors fall in Milwaukee to close up a back-to-back. They win in Chicago last night. Tonight in Milwaukee, a shorthanded Warriors team falls by a final score of 129 to 118. The highlight you just heard there, Tim Roy, of course, here on 95.7 The Game. That was when the game got out of hand for the Golden State Warriors. And it was in the final few minutes. The Warriors were in this game for like 45, 46 of the 48 minutes tonight. And ultimately just not quite enough down the stretch. Milwaukee turned it on offensively in the fourth quarter. They score 46 points in the fourth quarter, believe it or not. It didn't really feel that bad because a lot of those towards the end were garbage time points. But a big-time offensive output for Milwaukee in the fourth quarter ultimately spoils a great effort by the Golden State Warriors, who were playing without Stephen Curry, without Draymond Green, without Chris Paul, without Moses Moody, without Gary Payton II. A very short-handed Warriors team going up against a nearly fully available and healthy Milwaukee team. The only player Milwaukee was playing without, Jay Crowder, So all things considered, despite the loss, a positive performance for the Golden State Warriors. Plenty of positives to take away from this one. And I guess as we begin here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game, Mark Randy with you here. Thanks so much for tuning in. I want to hear from you guys all night long here on Warriors Wrap-Up, so give me a call. 888-957-9570. That's also the Comcast Business text line, which I have up right now. And as always, I'm keeping an eye on our YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Shout out to all you guys on YouTube right now. YouTube.com/957 The Game. Daniel Barry, D-Lou the Boss, Yada Dameen, Carl, Swole, a couple of others, Eve, Romar, TJ, Steven. I see you all. Keep it going on YouTube. Again, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Let's just start with Stephen Curry resting tonight. What do you guys think about that? You feel like this is okay? Stephen Curry rest. The Warriors coming into this one 18-20, desperately in need of some wins. Do you feel like a Stephen Curry performance tonight would have gotten the Warriors the win? I think it's totally understandable to give Steph a rest in this one, and Steve Kerr talked about it pregame. He's kind of running on fumes a little bit. And I think, you look at the performance tonight, Warriors ultimately lose by 11, but they were up. The game was kind of hanging in the balance in the final few minutes. I feel like sometimes the logic tells you, well, if Steph played in this game, the Warriors go on to win, right? Like, they were really close without their best player. So what would it have been with their best player? They probably get a win. I think the Warriors kind of were caught in this area, and I guess more so the Bucks were caught in this area, where, the Warriors are without Steph, without Dre, without Chris Paul, without Moody, without GP2, and you can kind of just take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit, right? I feel like if this was a game where Steph did play, Milwaukee maybe takes it a little bit more seriously from the jump, and while the Warriors lost by 11 without Steph, maybe you have somewhat of a similar result even if Steph does play. Now, that's not taking anything away from what this Warriors unit and group did, because it was very impressive. But I say all that just to say, it's first game that Steph Curry has missed due to rest this season. Only the third game he's missed all season. He had some knee soreness in November. 2 games at home, Minnesota. That was the game where Clay and Draymond got ejected, if you remember that game, when Clay and Jaden McDaniels got into kind of a tugging match against each other's jerseys. Draymond came in to help and choked Rudy Gobert, grabbed him around the neck for a few seconds. He got ejected and suspended. That was the first game without Steph Curry, if you remember that. And then they also were without Stephen Curry in a game against Oklahoma City. That first game against Oklahoma City, the first game of 2 that they played consecutively at Chase Center early in the season. But only the third game Stephen Curry missed. Warriors now 0-3. 0-3 without Stephen Curry so far this season. But this one was, I think, relatively positive for the Golden State Warriors. It was an interesting lineup to begin the game, an interesting starting lineup for Stephen Curry. I felt like there were 2 legitimate options for Steve Kerr. One of them was what he went with, which was Brandon Pajemski at point guard, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Dario Saric, Kevon Looney. The other option, I guess you could maybe make a case for some other starters 3 through 5. But in terms of who's replacing Stephen Curry in the starting lineup, you had 2 options. Either it was going to be Brandon Pajemski or it was going to be Corey Joseph. And I'm sure like 99.999% of Warrior fans out there were happy that it was Pajemski and not Corey Joseph, despite the fact that Pajemski isn't really a point guard, hasn't really played any meaningful minutes at point guard this season. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union, the text line, the Comcast Business text line, 888-957-9570. I can't really recall Brandon Pajemski before tonight playing any meaningful point guard minutes. Like when the game is in the balance, not garbage time minutes when your team's down 20 points in the final 5 minutes. Like, not that. He's had some of that. But Brandon Pajemski getting the start at point guard, and I'm sure it felt really good for him because he's returning home, not from Milwaukee city limits, but is from the area, had a bunch of friends and family in the building, and he was on the NBC Sports Bay Area halftime show. They had him on for a quick interview at halftime, and they asked him about all the friends and family he's got in the stands, and he said, quote, "My pockets are hurting." So he had to buy a lot of tickets for his friends and family, but he showed out. He was really, really good in this game. Brandon Podziemski, starting point guard for the Warriors tonight, just a tick under 36 total minutes, 23 points. He had 10 rebounds, his third career double-double, also 3 assists, a couple of steals, and did not turn the ball over once. Did not turn the ball over once. Brandon Podziemski, the starting point guard, 23 points, 10 rebounds, did not turn the ball over once in his first really meaningful run at point guard for the Golden State Warriors. I was incredibly impressed with Brandon Podziemski. He was very good in this ball game tonight. And I mean, he hit a couple of 3-pointers. I mean, he was 3 of 5 from downtown. He had a couple of crazy step back, like sidestep deep threes. One of them was over Giannis, and it kind of felt like a James Harden style 3-pointer, right? Where he has the ball, he's facing up the defender, he's in the triple threat where he can either shoot, dribble, pass. He hasn't picked up his dribble yet. It's an active dribble, and he does the quick little diagonal step, not fully backwards, but not fully to the side, takes the one dribble, sidestep, shoots, and hits it over the 7-footer Giannis. A really, really nice shot there from Brandon Podziemski. And how many times would he drive to the rim, nice finishes around the big men, whether it was a great shot blocker in Brook Lopez, whether it was Giannis, Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis got beat off the dribble time and time and time again tonight. So I think Brandon Podziemski, he might have opened Steve Kerr's eyes a little bit. Like, I could play this guy at point guard a little bit more than I previously thought, because he hadn't really been getting any run at that position. But tonight, Steve Kerr was forced into using him at that spot because no Steph Curry and, of course, no Chris Paul. So perhaps we see a little bit more Brandon Podziemski at the point guard spot. And I think that allows the Warriors to be a little bit more, creative in terms of their lineups. And I'll get to that more of that in a second here, but I want to make sure I hit the YouTube chat here. We got a super chat from Not Enough Space, $2 from Not Enough Space. Shout out Not Enough Space. He asks, is Pods a better playmaker than Clay? That's an interesting question, Not Enough Space, because I feel like part of the reason why last night felt and looked good offensively for the Warriors, and why tonight you kind of felt more of the same there, it's because of almost everyone on offense for the Warriors, everyone's willingness to pass a little bit more. And I think specifically that relates to Klay Thompson and Jonathan Kuminga, but certainly it relates to Brandon Podziemski. And he only had, 3 assists tonight, not an astronomical number, and it's not going to jump out the page when you're looking at the stat sheet. But he was really good, and I think he could become an option for the Warriors at the point guard spot. We will see if that's an area, a position that Steve Kerr trusts him with more, and maybe with Steph Curry back, as everyone expects on Monday, again, just out today to rest, no injury at all to speak of. He'll play Monday, barring something until the game, but he'll play Monday in Memphis, and the Warriors would really like that, of course, because they would like to get a win in Memphis, a team playing without Ja Morant now. But maybe as a result, we see more Brandon Podziemski as a legitimate point guard moving forward. What does that mean? Maybe it means less Corey Joseph, and maybe it also means that the Warriors would be a little more willing to move off of an expiring contract in Chris Paul, potentially, at the deadline. We can talk about all of that a little bit later here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. But to get back to the question that was posed again by Not Enough Space on our YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union, I think part of the reason why the Warriors, it feels a little smoother, it feels more, repeatable, and you get a little bit of confidence from this Warriors team right now. It's because of, on offense, Klay Thompson, Jonathan Kuminga to a lesser degree, not necessarily tonight, but certainly last night. Andrew Wiggins, Podziemski certainly is involved with this group, but he hasn't really surprised me necessarily with his willingness to pass. It's kind of what you expect from him. But Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson, and Jonathan Kuminga, those three together, it's been really difficult to play them on the court together. But that has changed a little bit. And we spent so much time, not just me, but everyone else here on 95.7 The Game, talking about the Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga two-man unit, right? So much time talking about that unit. Well, the Warriors can't get that unit to work. And if they don't get it to work, then they're going to have a really hard time winning games this season because those are your two wing players. And if your wing players can't play together, it kind of forces your hand in terms of rotations and units to play together. And it's a big reason why I think a lot of people feel like the most likely outcome of the trade deadline, maybe more than anything else, is that Andrew Wiggins gets traded. But where I've seen a little bit of a shift from the Golden State Warriors the last 2 days, it is Klay Thompson, it is Andrew Wiggins, and it is Jonathan Kuminga making the right basketball decisions most of the times with the ball in their hands. Too many times before the last couple of games, the ball gets to any three of those guys, and this is more specifically about Kuminga and Wiggins than Klay, but the ball gets to any of those guys, and oftentimes you feel like that's the end of the possession. The ball is just kind of going to stick there. Like, how many times did the ball go to Andrew Wiggins this season? Say it's on the left wing, it's in the corner, it's on a post up, maybe in the short corner, and he spins and faces up, whatever the case is. But you just kind of feel like he's not going to pass the ball. This possession is going to end with the ball in Wiggins' hand or with a shot. And it makes the offense obviously not, the ball doesn't move. The offense isn't nearly as smooth. Everyone else, all of the teammates, offensively, when that happens, you just kind of stand around and wait for Wiggins to shoot the ball, to turn it over, to shot clock violate, like whatever the situation is. And that had been the case, I feel like, for way too long. And it was to a similar degree with Jonathan Kuminga. I think for Kuminga's credit, he has pretty consistently all season, when he's had the ball in his hands, he wouldn't just stand around and face up and jab step for 5 seconds and kind of kill clock waiting for something to happen. He'd always just, put his head down and drive. Sometimes, though, that would get him in trouble. If a double team comes, he'd try to split it and he'd lose the ball because he doesn't have the tightest handle yet at this stage of his career. But I feel like where the Warriors' offense has changed right now and why Kuminga and Wiggins are working a little bit better now is because when the ball gets to those guys, they're making the right decisions, whether it is to catch and shoot, whether it is to catch, jab step your defender, drive past him to the hoop. We saw Kuminga do that time and time again tonight, and I want to get more into that a little bit later. Whether it is when you catch to kick it to the corner. Klay Thompson is open there. We want him shooting that three-pointer. Whether it is to drive and kick, finding a rolling Trace Jackson-Davis. I feel like the Warriors, and specifically those two wing players who haven't really been able to play together yet this season, why it's feeling and working a little bit more. It wasn't great tonight. They shared the floor for, I think, like 3.5 minutes in the third quarter. The Warriors, or in the second quarter, the Warriors were a +3 in those units. But when they're on the court together now, they're making the better passes. There was one pass that Andrew Wiggins made tonight. He catches the ball in the short corner on the right side of the floor. He tries to back down his defender. He ultimately spins to the baseline. And as he's spinning baseline, Kevon Looney comes racing down the middle part of the floor because his man, Brook Lopez, went to double Wiggins in that short corner because he sees him backing down his man, getting closer to the paint. In the past, I feel like Wiggins would try to throw up a tough shot, or maybe he would try to spin baseline, get around his defender. Maybe he would step out of bounds. He'd try to make a tough pass when he's in the air, leaping out of bounds underneath the basket, and he threw it away, whatever the case would be. But here, instead of doing that, forcing something that the defense is trying to actively encourage you to do, he made a nice wraparound pass, kind of a shovel around the defender, the double-teaming defender, Brook Lopez, and found on the bounce a cutting Kevon Looney for an easy dunk. So I feel like that's an area where we're seeing this Warrior unit and this Warrior offense get a little smoother together. And a big part of that, I think, is the mindset of Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga specifically. This also relates as well to Klay Thompson. But I feel like those three specifically do deserve a shout out for that, because it does feel like they are much more willing to pass the ball and to stick to kind of the flow of the Warriors offense. All right, really quickly, you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union, the smart choice for low auto loan rates and super simple online application process. It's Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you. Give me a call, 888-957-9570. That's also the Comcast Business text line, and I'm keeping an eye on our YouTube chat, youtube.com/957 The Game. From the 510, Wiggins, Looney, and Joseph should be replaced now with Quinones, Trace Jackson Davis, and Kuminga. I get that take because of what we saw tonight, 510. Quinones was solid in his spurt tonight. Let's see, how many minutes did he get tonight? Lester Quinones, 17 and a half minutes. Scored 6 points, was 2 of 5 from the field, grabbed 4 rebounds, a couple of assists. He was active, and you can always tell when there's an end of the bench guy that gets in for action that isn't garbage time, because generally speaking, they just come out there with a different kind of effort and intensity, and they're kind of just running all over the place. And for the most part, that helped Lester Quinones, but there was a couple of times where all right, take a deep breath, right? Especially on the offensive side of the ball where he's kind of trying to do a little bit too much, but you could get it because you could get why that happens, because you're trying really hard to make a very good impression when you're playing meaningful minutes for the first time in who knows how long. He was certainly solid. I thought Looney, to the 510's point, thought Wiggins, Looney, and Joseph should be replaced by Quinones, Trace Jackson Davis, and Jonathan Kuminga. I thought Looney was great tonight, and he built off a really good game in Chicago as well. Kevon Looney had 6 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. I don't know if it's just my eyes. You guys can let me know what you think on the YouTube chat, and 510, you can chime in again on our Comcast Business text line as well. Feels like Kevon Looney the last couple of games moving a little bit better. We'll see if that continues. But Looney was really good. How many times did he have? He'd fight for a couple of really, really difficult offensive rebounds in this game. He had 2. Actually, let me check here. Kevon Looney had 4 offensive rebounds. He had 6 rebounds, 4 offensive rebounds, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I feel like at least 2 of those offensive rebounds led to buckets on second chance opportunities for the Golden State Warriors. And it's not by any means, Kevon Looney all-star season. I'm not saying that, but he has had a bit of a rough season. I feel like he's been a little bit better the last couple of games for the Golden State Warriors. Trace Jackson Davis off the bench was solid, and he was part of that run for the Warriors in the second quarter where they came back. Remember, they were down at the end of the first quarter by 9 points, and then they won the second quarter by 11 to take a lead into the halftime break. But I think a lot of the credit there we've got to give is to Jonathan Kuminga. And I feel like there was a shift for the Warriors in this game. And it happened. It's kind of interesting because this is a unique and kind of a strange Milwaukee defense because they're so big, right? You've got Giannis at one forward spot. He's a 7-footer. Chris Middleton at the other forward spot. He's not gigantic, but he's certainly not small either. But then you've also got Brook Lopez. So you've got 2 7-footers essentially in your starting lineup. And your first guy off the bench is Bobby Portis, who's not quite 7 feet, but he's pretty tall himself. This is a really, really big front line of the Milwaukee Bucks. But interestingly enough, they can be had in the paint. I think they give up like the second most points in the paint per game in the NBA this season on average. But it's not just like throw the ball into the paint and back down Brook Lopez and back down Bobby Portis and try to go at Giannis from the post. Because they're big and strong and they're great rim protectors. And it felt like the Golden State Warriors, the plan in the first quarter was the plan that worked for them against Chicago last night. Like it was, all right, let's throw the ball into Kuminga on the post. Let's throw the ball into Wiggins on the post, and we'll just have them back them down. Because guess what? Against Chicago, that worked. Because who was guarding Kuminga against Chicago? Kobe White was at times, right? As Shaq would say, that's barbecue chicken. Give that to Kuminga every single time. And it worked. It worked time and time again last night. And the Warriors went to that in the first quarter. He went to that. Steve Kerr went to that. The Warriors went to that. Whoever's decision call it was, they went to that a lot in the first quarter. And what happened? Kuminga had kind of a slow first quarter because he was trying to back down from the post, from the block, bigger, stronger, and really good defenders down low. And it wasn't quite working. In the first quarter, Jonathan Kuminga, 6.5 minutes, 2 points, 1 of 5 from the field. And a lot of those, only one of those 5 field goals for Kuminga were 3-pointers. 1 of 5 from the field. A lot of those were in the paint. And they were, well contested by Brook Lopez and by Giannis and by Bobby Portis and everyone else. But then what happened? What happened in the second quarter? The Warriors entirely changed their plan of attack offensively. Instead of just throwing it into the post, they would bring Wiggins, and it wasn't as much Wiggins tonight because Wiggins did have a rough shooting game. But the strategy is the same for both Wiggins and Kuminga because they do share similar skill sets. But what they would do, instead of throwing it to Kuminga in the post, they would bring Kuminga out to the perimeter, bring either Portis or Giannis or Brook Lopez, whoever it was that was guarding Kuminga, and they throw it to Kuminga on the perimeter and have those big guys check him, 25 feet from the hoop. And then Kuminga, with his quickness, give him a quick jab step, a crossover, drives past him, and then finishes. And it happened time and time again, and that's where Jonathan Kuminga got going offensively, and it's where the Warriors erased that 9-point deficit they found themselves in after the first quarter. So I credit the Warriors for adjusting and for finding the solution to the question in that first quarter. And I think it shows that Kuminga and Dario Saric was also a big part of this. And Wiggins, to a certain degree, he had a couple of good takes. But all in all, Wiggins only 7 points, 3 of 13 from the field. Nothing to write home about. He just couldn't hit his shots tonight. Although I did think his effort was a little bit better tonight. Not compared to last night, but compared to most of the season. But this is specifically about Jonathan Kuminga. I think you got to give him and the Warriors credit for realizing that what they did last night was not going to work tonight. And I think the Warriors are coming to the realization that Jonathan Kuminga isn't just a one-trick pony, that he can beat you in a number of different ways. And there was that switch from the first quarter into the second quarter, and it continued for the Warriors kind of the rest of the game. Unfortunately for Golden State, in the fourth quarter, Milwaukee got going offensively. They scored 46 points. And no matter how many times Kuminga would just race past Bobby Portis on the dribble, it didn't matter. It didn't matter because in the fourth quarter, Milwaukee was scoring nearly every possession down the floor. So a good game from Jonathan Kuminga. I don't know how I've gotten this far in Warriors wrap-up yet and have not yet said it. A career high in points for Jonathan Kuminga, 28 of them. Now a handful of them came late, and they were garbage time points for Jonathan Kuminga. But hey, 28 points is 28 points, and that is a new career high. He had 17 of those 28 in the fourth quarter, and not all of them were garbage time points. I mean, he made a couple of threes in the early part of the fourth that kind of kept the Warriors in the game early in that period. He was really good in this game. And he deserves major kudos for being ready and coming off of the bench consecutive games. He was really good in this one for the Golden State Warriors. And I think the same goes for Dario Saric, because Saric, I'm not sure he gets enough credit for his versatility on the offensive end. You can throw it to him on the block, and he's got an array of pump fakes and ball fakes and spins, and he's a good passer out of the post. But he's got a little bit of wiggle to him as well. You can get the ball to him on the perimeter with a bigger man on him, and he'll drive past him as well. It's not as smooth and as sharp as Kuminga driving past a big man, but Saric can do that as well. So I thought the Warriors, their plan of attack offensively, it adjusted after the first quarter when it didn't work. The Warriors only scored 24 points, and it was pretty ugly offensively. In that first quarter, they shot only 41% from the field, 10 of 24 from the field, despite the fact that a lot of those were in the paint. But they managed to draw the Milwaukee big men out of the paint and then attack them and get to that open space. All right, Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you. We're going to hear from head coach Steve Kerr now here on the postgame show. Mark Randy with you on 95.7 The Game. It's about a 3-minute chunk of Steve Kerr from earlier tonight as he addressed the media after the Warriors lost 129-118 in Milwaukee. We'll take a listen to the head coach. We'll come back, take more of your calls, more of your comments. 888-957-9570 on Warriors Wrap-Up. Here is Warriors head coach Steve Kerr.
I thought our guys competed really hard, tough back-to-back, playing against a great team. Thought we really gave a great effort. The game slipped away from us in the fourth. They scored 46 points and felt like we had decent control of the game defensively until that fourth, and then they got loose. But I'm really proud of the effort, and the guys really fought.
Was that your defense faltering in the fourth, or was it Giannis? It looked like a few plays Giannis just sort of asserted his will.
Yeah, there were a couple breakdowns. I thought the key was Chris Middleton got going, and when he got hot during that stretch, that helped Giannis get free because we had to pay so much attention to Chris. And there was a rebound off a free throw. That was a huge play. I think it turned into a 4-point play. A couple plays where we wanted to double Giannis, and he went to the rim before we could get there. But they, give them credit. They played a great fourth quarter.
For the first three quarters, though, and especially in the second quarter, you limited them to like 20-something, like low in the 20s for points. What was the biggest change that you saw defensively compared to the past couple of games?
It's just how hard the guys were playing, and that's all we've talked about is the last few days. We clearly lost our belief and our spirit, our edge, whatever you want to call it, for those last two home games of our homestand, and it was embarrassing for all of us. And I think the last few days, that's what we've talked about. Our guys have played really hard the last two nights, and that's the standard that has been set here for a long time. And as long as we play that hard, I'm good with whatever the results are. I think we'll give ourselves a chance to win every night when we compete like that.
We talked about Brandon being back in his hometown. How do you think he played tonight?
Brandon was fantastic, yeah. Without Steph, obviously we needed his offense, and, he came through in a big way. He's a really crafty player. He knows how to get to the rim. He's got that Euro step. He just has a feel and a knack. He's had 10 rebounds, I think. It's one of the things we love about him. He just seems to be a step ahead of the play all the time.
Seems like Jonathan has games where he's really locked in, others where he kind of just fades. Mm-hmm. And he obviously was very locked in last night. Mm-hmm. Looked early tonight like he might be fading, but then he snapped back to life. Did you any sense of what got him rolling a little bit?
Yeah, that's kind of how it is with young players. It's a little up and down, and I thought J.K. really stayed with it after the slow start, and he did a really good job of attacking, getting downhill, and he had a big scoring night, and he continues to grow. So he's doing a great job.
All right, there's Warriors head coach Steve Kerr after the game today addressing the media, again, after the Warriors fall 129-118. Just following along with the conversation going on right now on our YouTube chat, powered by First NorCal Credit Union, youtube.com/957 The Game. TJ saying, in response to what Steve Kerr said about the game slipping away in the fourth quarter, it slipped away because he took Kuminga out in the middle of the fourth. It still makes no sense. They went down 10 while he was on the bench. TJ, I'm looking through the play-by-play log here right now. Kuminga checked out with 4:37 to go in the fourth quarter, and the Warriors were down 7. He came back in the game with 1:40 left, so at that point, the game likely over. Warriors were down 10. So the Warriors were down 7 by the time that he checked out, and he'd been playing a lot of minutes up to that point. I get wanting to keep him on the floor because he was playing really well in that fourth quarter, but I think you are over-exaggerating just a little bit because it was a 7-point game by the time that Kuminga came out. But he responded well to it. I mean, he played really well in those first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. And then when he came back in the game, I mean, at that point it was garbage time, but he scored another 6 points in the final minute and a half. He was really good for the Warriors tonight, and he played 30 minutes. He played 30 minutes tonight. That's a bunch of minutes for a guy coming off of the bench, and it's again why I feel like, and maybe I sound like a broken record, apologies if you've heard me say this 5 times already, but there's so much talk about starting and the reports from Kuminga's camp that he's lost faith in Steve Kerr and he's not going to reach his full potential with the Warriors. I get, like, maybe from an ego standpoint, like, I'm a starter on the Golden State Warriors. Like, I get that. That's got to feel nice. But there's so much more, to being an effective quality basketball player and being able to impact winning on your team than just being in the starting lineup. And Jonathan Kuminga, the last 2 nights specifically, has done a really good job of that. Came off the bench in Chicago, came off the bench tonight, and you can argue as one of the Warriors' 3 best players both games. He was really good last night, and again tonight, 28 points, 9 of 18 from the field, made 2 more threes and only 3 attempts, couple of rebounds, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, had a block, a great block. I think was it of Giannis? He had a nice block from behind chasing down someone. He was really good and did not miss a free throw as well. 6 of 6 from the free throw line was Jonathan Kuminga. Something else that Steve Kerr talked about was Brandon Pajemski. He just always seems to be like in the right area and making all the right plays and the right moves. There was a moment, it was at the very end of the first quarter. The Warriors at that point were down, I think, around 9 points. Remember, and they ultimately lost the first quarter by 9. It was 33-24 after the first, but it could have been a whole lot worse. And there was a moment where Pajemski got a rebound and just beat everyone down the floor, had a fast break bucket. All right, Warriors get 2 more points there. Fast break bucket for Brandon Pajemski. Then he gets the defensive rebound again, pushes the ball up the floor, and looks for Šarić. Šarić, tries to dribble, pass, whatever. He ultimately turns it over, but it was a good rebound and good push by Pajemski. Then on the other side, Pajemski draws a charge on Bobby Portis. After the turnover by Šarić, Pods gets back down the floor, plants his feet outside of the restricted area, draws another charge, and then on the next ensuing offensive possession, he sets up Trayce Jackson-Davis for an easy lay-in. So he had a rebound, fast break bucket, rebound, and push, draws a charge, and sets up Trayce Jackson-Davis for the easy dunk. An incredible sequence for Brandon Pajemski when you consider that he's playing his first meaningful minutes at point guard. He's a rookie, and he's playing in his hometown in front of friends and family, where you know that maybe he's putting a little bit of pressure on himself to play well. And he has sequences like that all the time where he gets a steal on one end, finishes with an acrobatic reverse layup on the other end, then gets a deflection, draws a charge, directs traffic, and navigates a screen and roll and passes to the cutter at the right time. He does so many of those little things so well. and it's really good to see from Brandon Podziemski. And as I said earlier, I do think there is a world where with this performance tonight, Steve Kerr now becomes more willing to play Brandon Podziemski at the point guard spot. He hasn't really done that at all this year, and I think that ability not necessarily is going to transform the Warriors into a great defensive team, because I'm just not sure that they have the roster and the personnel to do that. But if you get Brandon Podziemski minutes at point guard and you feel comfortable with that, first of all, it means less of Corey Joseph, which I know a lot of Warrior fans would be fine with. Seems like every comment on our YouTube chat about Corey Joseph, everything I see on Twitter, safe to say a lot of Warrior fans not fans of Corey Joseph. And to be completely honest, if the Warriors are healthy, Corey Joseph would not play anything beyond garbage time. So Steve Kerr's hand is kind of forced at times. But the point I'm trying to make is if Brandon Podziemski can prove, and I think he took the first step toward that tonight, if he can prove that he can play legitimate point guard minutes, what that allows is the Warriors to get Brandon Podziemski on the floor while also not sacrificing a bunch on defense. Because Brandon Podziemski's first 9 starts this season, tonight was Podziemski's 10th start. His first 9 starts came with 3 guard lineups. He would be starting alongside Curry, Clay, Kuminga, and Looney, generally speaking, but always alongside Curry and Clay. So your starting lineup is Curry, Clay, and Podziemski. And given what we know about Klay Thompson and his injuries, Steph Curry is now about to be 36. Like, that's not nearly the defensive unit that it used to be. And now you throw a third small guard in there. Not that Podziemski's a bad defender, but you throw him in there and you ask that team to try to defend no matter who the 4 and 5 are, you're going to have a hard time. So what Podziemski's ability as point guard allows this Warrior team to do is it allows you to get Podziemski on the court as a ball handler to spell Steph, potentially. At times you could play him with Steph, of course, and given how many minutes that both those guys play, that will happen. But with Podziemski being able to work as your backup point guard, you don't have to play. You don't feel like you need to play, other guards, or at least 2 other guards alongside Podziemski, because you feel like he can handle some of the ball handling duties moving forward. And that means you can play a bigger lineup. Maybe when Moody comes back, you play Moody at the 3, and Kuminga at the 4, and Looney at the 5, or Trace Jackson-Davis at the 5, or Trace Jackson-Davis at the 4, and Looney at the 5. When Draymond's back, you play Draymond at the 4, and Looney at the 5, to go with maybe Kuminga at the 3. And suddenly you have a better defensive unit because you're not being forced into playing a 3-guard lineup. And the reason why, again, is because you feel like you have a little bit more confidence in Brandon Podziemski moving forward because of what he showed tonight, working as a primary ball handler. So I think that's a good sign for the Warriors, and I'll be keeping an eye on his rotations and his minutes and who he's paired with, because I don't think the 3-guard lineups for the Warriors can really work anymore. If it's Podziemski, Steph, and Clay, if for whatever reason Chris Paul is not traded at the deadline and he comes back, and when he returns, if it's Steph, Clay, and CP3, or any combination of those 4 guys, I don't think you can have 3 of them on the court together. That much. Draymond will help that because Draymond is still an elite defender, but those 3 on the court together, it's tough to make it work defensively. It really is. So Podziemski being a little more versatile offensively than maybe we previously thought, I think has a chance to really help this Golden State Warrior team. All right, over to the phones we go. Actually, first, we're going to take a quick break. So D and Junior, I'll get to you on the other side. Hang with us through this break. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, hear your calls. We'll take a few more comments as well, and then we'll wrap things up on the other side as Warriors wrap-up continues. The Warriors fall to the Bucks. Final score, 129-118. More Warriors wrap-up coming up next on 95.7 The Game.
Spring is free at Merritt College. There's something for everyone. You can study any way you want. In person, hybrid, and online-only classes. all available for you. Spring classes start January 22nd. Enroll now at merit.edu and get back to your future.
A final score, 129-118. That highlight you just heard, Tim Roy, of course, here on 95.7 The Game, and it's just another example of the feel that Brandon Podziemski has for this game. It was, I can't recall if it was in the third quarter or the fourth quarter, but it was off of a long offensive rebound by Milwaukee where the Warriors are kind of scrambling, trying to find the basketball. Ultimately, the Bucks get it, and they're trying to reset the offense. And Podziemski was one of the guys racing for the rebound, and it kind of bounced towards the right corner. So Podziemski's momentum is carrying him out to that right corner, but a Buck gets it before he does. And Podziemski, realizing where the outlet is for that Buck who got the offensive rebound, it's the right wing guard, which is Damian Lillard. Podziemski, before his opponent even has the ball in his hands, knowing what pass he's going to make, before he even gets the ball, he begins running to cut off that passing lane. And before the Buck, I can't remember who it was that got the pass or got the rebound in the corner. I think it might have been Andre Jackson Jr. coming in off the bench. I think it might have been him. Before he can realize that Podziemski's in the passing lane, his muscle memory is taking him to pass it that way, and he does. Podziemski intercepts it because he knew the right place to be on the court, and he gets an easy fast break dunk in front of his home crowd. That's just one of many examples in this game throughout the entire season that shows that Brandon Podziemski has that kind of sense on the basketball court. And it's just something that you either have or you don't. You can't really teach it. And that's maybe reason number one why since he got into the lineup and since he got a rotation shot, he's only been getting more and more minutes because he makes plays like that every single night. All right, as promised, let's get out to the phone lines on a Warriors wrap-up, 888-957-9570. Let's go to D from D.C. D, what's up? You're on Warriors wrap-up on 95.7 The Game. How you doing? D, you there? Hello, D. All right, unfortunately. Unfortunately, D not there. That's fine. We'll go on to Junior from Pacifica. Junior, what's up? You're on a Warriors wrap-up on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, man, this is good to hear, and it was a good game to watch tonight, just like the game last night. Good stuff from the Warriors, which I really appreciate as a fan. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant, but I think you'll agree with me, so I don't think you'll mind. Like, the biggest mistake a fan or someone calling into a show like yours can make is to say, if Joe scores 12 points in 12 minutes, he'll score 24 points in 24 minutes and 48 points in 48 minutes. Like, this stuff is hard. It's extreme performance, even in a regular season NBA game, let alone a playoff game. So coaches have to develop players, and they have to let them make mistakes, and they have to let them build. A few of you guys hosts have been pointing out, the prime players are 26 to 28 years old, because that's where strength keeps developing for a while, past 21, 22, and skill keeps developing as well. After that, strength starts to diminish, So it's not just, you can't just multiply people's numbers and say, okay, so the perfect, a video game version of the Warriors would do this, that, and the other thing. It just doesn't work that way. So, like, my fellow callers, don't be stupid and assume this is going to happen. And don't be stupid and assume Kerr is stupid because he knows what I'm trying to tell people. So excuse the rant, but I think I like the idea of keeping the core together for a while, letting Draymond come back, seeing what's developing. A lot of these players are growing. This year may not be a championship year, but, man, if we put some time and effort into developing our players and make one smart trade, I'm not smart enough to say what it is, we might be in really good shape for next year.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Junior. Thanks for tuning in, as always, and always love hearing from you on Warriors Wrap-Up. I think that's a fair observation, right? Like, just because someone was effective in his stint doesn't mean if you give him more minutes, he's going to continue being that effective. And it also doesn't mean he's not going to. But it's not just something we can assume. I think something that, a lot of us do if we're into the statistics of basketball, like you look at a player's per 36, right? Like, instead of just his per game averages, Jonathan Kuminga is a good example. He's definitely not averaging 36 minutes per game. But, if you look at his per 36, per game averages, like per 36 minutes, he does X. He scores 22 points per game or whatever the number is. I don't have it off the top of my head. But if you just look at his points per game, it's probably around like 13 points per game. But he's averaging 25 minutes a game, something like that. But if you were to look at his per 36 minutes, that's just an extension. You're just multiplying numbers. So I think that is to Junior's point there. But just because he's not getting that minutes also does not mean he's going to play poor in those minutes either. But there is kind of a statistical component to that as well. All right, we got D from DC back on the line. D, we're going to try this again. How you doing on this Saturday? What do you think of that Warrior game tonight, D?
Bro, how you doing?
I'm doing well, D. Good to have you. What happened the first time, man?
I don't know what happened to the combo, man. I don't know, but I guess didn't want to speak tonight. Yeah,
go ahead though, D. What'd you think of that Warrior win or the Warrior loss tonight? It felt like a win at times.
First, let me quickly say that I think you're doing a hell of a job with the afternoon or after game report, man. You're doing a hell of a job.
Thank you, D. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. What I wanted to say is the kid doing had a great game tonight. A great game. TJD and Pods, man, what a pick. I don't know where the GM went to discover these two youngsters. Wow. I'm so proud of them. They have everything. They have the IQ. They have the pizzazz, the special within the system if Kerr allowed them to. But anyways, in my opinion, every game the last couple of years, I expect for either Kerr to lose the game or for the referees to turn around and give the games to the opposing teams. Kerr could have saved the game tonight, in my opinion. In the fourth quarter, had he not played Saric and Looney together at the front court, we probably would have pulled this one game out. Looney is dead, man. Looney does not deserve the minutes that he's getting this year at all. Saric is okay because he's passing the ball and he's also scoring. But Looney is a net negative. Aside from Wiggins, I think Looney is one of the reasons why our record is as bad as it is. Kerr needs to evolve from Looney and allow TJD the opportunity to play because he showed something tonight. He showed that the P&R between himself and Clay is something that we can rely on. We can rely on that. That gives us an excess opportunity to score the ball as well as to keep the defense guessing. We're no longer passing the ball to Steph or Clay to shoot the three or all of that. Play in the interior and score the ball. Because TJD adds a lot of rim pressure, man. Kerr needs to evolve and allow that young boy to play instead of Looney. That's what I got, man.
Yeah, appreciate the call, D. Always like hearing from you on these Warrior. Oh, goo. That's a classic gooism right there. I think D's point about Brandon Podziemski and Trayce Jackson-Davis is right. I agree with. Those two, you clearly have just a couple of rookies that understand the game of basketball, that generally speaking are in the right spot. They have that feel. They have that innate sense. Part of it maybe for Trayce Jackson-Davis is because his dad, Dale Davis, an NBA veteran. He's been around the game his entire life at a professional level. So that certainly helps. But Podziemski as well, he has it. He has it, and you see it like the second that he steps on the floor. He just is in the right spot. He's rarely caught off guard. He gets to spots on the floor that you don't expect him to get to, and that's because of his anticipation. And he oftentimes knows what's coming before it happens. I will say, maybe to fire back at D just a little bit, if I were to ask you guys, which two Warriors you think were positive in the plus-minus tonight? There were only two of them. Which two Warriors were positive in the plus-minus tonight? unless you're looking at a box score or you've already looked at one and you already noticed this, I'm not sure anyone would get these two players. I'm going to give you just a little bit to maybe get some guesses in on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/957thegame, powered by First NorCal Credit Union, or on the Comcast Business text line, 888-957-9570. There were only two of them. One of them, I think, was a result mostly of there was not quite fully garbage time, but the Warriors got a couple of buckets in the last few moments that helped. Well, someone got it. Swole Mole got it. The two Warriors that were positive in the plus-minus, Lester Quinones and Kevon Looney. Those are the two positives for the Golden State Warriors tonight. Looney in 18 and a half minutes, he had 6 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, had a block, did not turn the ball over. He was a +7 in his 18 and a half minutes. And then Lester Quinones was a +9 in his 17 and a half minutes with 6 points, 4 rebounds, and a couple of assists. So good job to you guys on the YouTube chat. And I know using one game plus-minus doesn't mean much. And to D's point, Looney has had a rough season. He hasn't looked like he's been moving well, and his touch around the rim has gone a little bit. And think back to like the 2022 playoff run, specifically that series against, what was it, Dallas? Memphis and Dallas, when Looney would just routinely have 20 rebound games. He's not quite that player right now. I don't know if maybe he's gained a little bit of weight, if maybe he's dealing with an undisclosed injury, something that isn't enough to keep him out of games, but maybe has him hobbled just a little bit, because D is right. He doesn't seem as quick or as spry as he has been in the past, but I thought he was solid tonight, and he was good. He was good last night as well for the Golden State Warriors. But Looney and Lester Quinones, the two Warriors in the positives and the plus-minus. Everyone else was negative. Brandon Podziemski was a -1 in his 35 minutes. A -1 in your 35 minutes when you play almost, he played closer to 36 minutes, by the way, 35 minutes and 44 seconds. You play like all but 12 minutes. You play 3/4 of this game in a game where you lose by 11. You're a -1. That's pretty darn good. Pretty darn good from Brandon Podziemski. Trace Jackson-Davis was good as well for the Warriors, but this game just got away from them in the fourth quarter. Aside from that fourth quarter, when the Milwaukee Bucks outscored the Warriors by 9, they put up 46 points. They outscored the Warriors 46-37. Aside from that fourth quarter, the Warriors were in control of this game. There was a moment where Clay cut the lead by Milwaukee to 5 points. He hit a three-pointer with about 3.5 left in the fourth quarter. It cut the lead from 8 down to 5 at 113-108, and then Milwaukee just turned on the gas. In the next 3 minutes, they went on a 10-2 run and a 12-4 run. They pushed that lead from 5 up to 13, and that was kind of the end of the game. They ultimately score 46 points in that fourth quarter. But aside from that run to close the fourth quarter, the Warriors controlled this game for the other 43-ish minutes. There was one moment, middle of the third quarter, where Milwaukee went on a really quick 10-0 run. It was because there was a Giannis and one. He missed the free throw. Milwaukee got the offensive rebound, led to a Giannis dunk. So that's a 4-point possession. That's an immediate 4-0 run. Then they got a stop, and Milwaukee hit a 3, an immediate 7-0 run. Then Milwaukee got another stop. They hit another 3, and it was a 10-0 run over 70 seconds of basketball. A 10-0 run over 70 seconds on 3 possessions. And your lead suddenly is a deficit. And at that moment, I don't know how you guys felt, but I was thinking, watching this game from our 95.7 The Game studios, like, that's the minute of this game. That's the moment that I'm circling as kind of the turning point. But the Warriors responded, and they fought back with a run of their own. They got back in the game. They got back even, only were down by 2 points to begin the fourth quarter. And they were in this game for much of the fourth quarter again, until that 10-2 and 12-4 run for Milwaukee over a 3-minute stretch. to close out this game. But everything up until that, the Warriors were there step for step with the Milwaukee Bucks. And part of you maybe argues or thinks that, the Warriors playing without Steph, playing without Draymond, playing without Moody, playing without Chris Paul, playing without GP2, maybe Milwaukee kind of sleptwalked through this game. They took their foot off the pedal just a little bit because they realized that Steph wasn't playing and everyone else was out. And then they kind of got it together in the fourth because they realized they were in for a fight. But that takes nothing away from what this Warriors unit did up to that point. All right, couple things to take care of before we do wrap up here on Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game. We begin with extending the three-point line, and for that, we'll turn to a guy we talked a lot about already here on Warriors Wrap Up. That is the Milwaukee native, the rookie, Brandon Pajemski.
Pajemski gets a live dribble as a result. Waits, 7 to shoot. Now looks, dribbles, and shoots a three over onto Kupo and hit it! Stepping to his right with the triple.
That was the one I was talking about earlier where it was like a James Harden side step, kind of the diagonal step, not backwards, but not completely sideways. The diagonal side step that James Harden has perfected. Damian Lillard is also very good at it, and Brandon Pajemski did it as he was facing up the 7-foot Giannis Antetokounmpo. And he sidesteps him to the right, which is kind of a little awkward to do for a left-handed shooter. Pajemski is a left-handed shooter, and he sidestepped to the right, because you're releasing that ball on the left side of your head, which is closer to the guy you're sidestepping away from, right? But he still managed to get the shot off over the top of Giannis. And I think a reason why that was able to happen and why Pajemski was able to get that shot off is because what the Warriors did to Giannis, did to Brook Lopez, did to Bobby Portis time and time again. From the wing, they would bring him out, whether they were matched up with Kuminga or Saric or even Pajemski on occasion, and the Warriors would just drive right past him. So as a result, Giannis has to respect that driving ability, and he gave Pajemski a little bit of room to hit the three, and he knocked it down. So that is extending the three-point line, brought to you by West Coast Men's Health, successfully treating men for ED and chronic pain. Visit westcoastmenshealth.com. All right, up next here on Warriors Wrap Up, as we're getting close to officially wrapping things up here on 95.7 The Game, as the Warriors fall to the Milwaukee Bucks 129-118, and that is our hardest worker of the game, brought to you by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, who works hard to serve the community. Are you looking for a career in law enforcement? Learn more about job opportunities at joinacso.com. And for our hardest worker of the game tonight, I think I got to give this one to Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga, a career-high 28 points. He was 10 of 18 from the field. His second consecutive hyper-efficient game shooting-wise. He was 2 of 3 from downtown. He made all 6 of his free throw attempts. The Warriors as a team shot 14 free throws. Kuminga shot 6 of them. The Warriors as a team were 9 of 14 from the free throw line. Kuminga was 6 for 6. He did not leave any points on the line. He was really good. And over the last week and a half, maybe the last 5 games, Kuminga's free throwing has skyrocketed. He's done a really good job shooting the ball from the stripe, and he's getting a lot of free throws. He's getting a lot of opportunities because he's getting to a point where Kuminga realizes if he's got a smaller guy on him, get it to me in the post. I'm going to back him down. I got a number of moves. My little mid-range fadeaway spinning jumper is pretty effective and efficient. And then if you got a bigger guy on me, guess what? I'll bring you out to the perimeter. You don't respect my shot. I'm going to take one. And, he's been hitting them the last couple of games. But if you're pressing up on me, I'm going to drive right past him because I'm quicker than you. And he's getting to the rim and he's getting to the line a lot. And him making those free throws is helping out. So Kuminga, 28 points, 10 of 18 from the field. Did only have 3 rebounds. You'd like to see that number a little bit higher from Kuminga. 2 assists as well. But the big one for Kuminga, and a sign that he's making the right decisions with the ball in his hands, 0 turnovers, and that has been a problem for him at times. Kuminga, 0 turnovers and effective from the field. You shoot a good percentage from the field and you don't turn the ball over. What does that tell you? It tells you when the ball is in your hands, you're making the right decisions. So a big positive there for Jonathan Kuminga. And as a result, he is our hardest worker of the game. Again, brought to you by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. All right, that'll do it for Warriors Wrap-Up on this Saturday evening. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. We are back with more Warriors basketball on MLK Day. Happy MLK weekend, everybody. The Warriors are in Memphis on Monday. Tip-off is at 3, which means pregame coverage begins at 2. I will have it for you with Warriors Live. You can listen, of course, all Monday morning and into the early afternoon to the morning roast. And Steiny and Goo, I will take over right after Steiny and Goo at 2 o'clock as we get ready for Warriors and Memphis. Steph Curry will be back, and there is a chance that Draymond Green returns from his long absence on Monday in Memphis. Steve Kerr said pregame today there's a chance that Draymond plays in Memphis or in Utah or both. There is a chance. We will likely know more about that tomorrow and, of course, on Monday. So make sure you're locked in to 95.7 The Game for all of your updates. Again, tip-off is at 3. Coverage begins at 2. The Warriors in Memphis on Monday as they try to guarantee at least a 500 road trip. And considering who Memphis is now playing without Ja Morant, that is a game the Warriors really feel like they should win, and they probably feel the same way in Utah, despite the fact that has at times been kind of a house of horrors for the Warriors. It's always difficult to play in Utah, but first things first, the Warriors in Memphis on Monday at 3, coverage beginning at 2 here on 95.7 The Game. For our whole crew here at 95.7 The Game, Chris O'Connell and Sterling Bennett, my name is Mark Randy signing off. Thanks to all of you for tuning in on this Saturday evening. The Warriors fall in Milwaukee, but the shorthanded Dubs put up a good fight. Final score 129-118. You've been listening to Warriors Wrap-Up right here on 95.7 The Game.
When people have a craving to explore new and traditional Asian cuisines, they head to P.F. Chang's, where scratch-made dishes